tell us a little about yourself and what motivated you to run for office again.
Okay. All right, again. My name is Kim Fritchie. I consider myself a lifelong Lee Summit resident. I've lived here since 1976 when my parents moved into Lee Summit, and I did attend Lee Summit High School. I attended Central Missouri State University at the time. I got my Bachelor's of Science in Education, English and Journalism, and my first job was at Lee Summit High School as an English and journalism teacher. And I also did the school newspaper. Did that for 12 years, and I got my master's degree in administration. I interviewed at Campbell Middle School, and Dennis Smith hired me at Campbell to work with them, and I was they called us an administrative assistant at the time. It was an assistant principal, basically, without the pay. Did that for 2 years, and then in 1995, Dr. Gail Williams, who was the superintendent at the time, promoted me to a full assistant principal, moved me to Pleasantly Middle School, and I stayed there until I retired in 2011. In the middle of that, I went ahead and went back to school and got my education specialist degree in school administration also. So that's my highest level of education. A little bit more about myself is I've been married for 42 years to the same man. We have 2 children. My oldest daughter is Holly Dawn, and she teaches vocal music she used to teach at Pleasantly Middle. She teaches at Summit Lakes Middle School now, and she loves it. And then my youngest daughter is Natalie Santuff, and she lives in Blue Springs. And each daughter has blessed us with grandchildren. Holly has 2, Natalie has 3, and their spouses are wonderful too. So in my spare time, I enjoy hanging out with the grandkids. Now, the second part of your question is what prompted me to run again. I think the again part's actually pretty important. The last couple of years have been a little shaky, and we've gone through some serious stuff. And I just really felt like my job wasn't finished. One of the most important things that I think we've done recently is to hire a great superintendent. We went through a really extensive process in hiring Dr. Buck with lots of input, and I was super pleased with our search firm that we used for that. And I really feel like we got the best quality candidate. That we hired the best one for our needs. There were many other great candidates, but he was definitely the best. And I just feel like that I want to stick around, and I want to help him to get used to the Lee Summit community and learn about our school district and start him off on a real positive footing, because, that's what we need. We need a really good, steady, positive start from here and going forward.
Okay. What experiences have helped you prepare for the professionalism and leadership required of school board members?
Okay. Well, I definitely think my years in education have, my 30 years with the school district. I learned quite a bit about our school district, obviously, during that amount of time, and especially being on the administrative side. You get to know a little bit more from the inside and interact with the administrators and learn quite a bit about your school district. I feel like, too, since I have been on the board for the last 3 years, that in itself has been a real learning experience. It really takes a little bit of time once you are elected to, I think, any position to really get your feet wet and know how to navigate. And I think that's really kind of what we have to do when you make it onto the school board. It takes several months to really get to know your job. And so I've done that definitely in the last 3 years, and with the help of the Missouri School Board Association and their great training that they give their school board members, I feel like that they really offer you a good base for your knowledge in that. In addition, I've attended both the spring and the fall conferences by Missouri School Board Association, and I go to all the sessions. I don't skip them. When I go to a conference, I take full advantage of those opportunities, and so I feel like I've learned quite a lot, and through my experiences alone in the last 3 years, I feel like I've learned quite a bit that will, do me good in the future.
Okay. How does our district maintain and continue to improve its services and reputation?
Well, the first thing we need to do is focus on our kids. That's number one. Our kids are number one, and we can't ever forget that focus. We need to constantly be providing our students with the very best we can to help them achieve intellectually, socially, and emotionally. We need to provide for their well-being. Gone are the days when you just packed up your kiddos and sent them to school and you just taught them the basics and sent them home. These days we are expected to teach the whole child, every aspect of them. And student well-being is a big issue these days. We've got lots of children who have lots of specific needs, and so that requires a greater number of people surrounding them who take care of them and see to those needs so that they can be in good shape to learn every day. So, the real essence of equity is helping each child to get what he or she needs. And that's really what I feel like our schools are doing now. And our teachers are amazing. I mean, anything we can do to assist our teachers in that mission of helping each and every child is what we need to do. So from professional learning to giving them a support system to provide for their well-being, to show appreciation for them, both monetarily and in other ways, we need to do that.
Okay. The R7 district bylaws clearly define the relationship between the school board and R7 staff.
Mm-hmm.
Please describe how you envision your working relationship with staff.
I'm thinking about that. Well, I think my first relationship, or my first obligation, I guess I would say, is to be supportive in any way I can as a school board member. The higher up you go in the hierarchy, the farther away you get from the classroom. I learned that when I was in school. As a teacher, you're right there where the rubber hits the road. You're there every day, whether that kiddo feels badly or they feel good, okay? When you get to the point that you become an administrator, you're higher up. And, the assistant principals, I stayed an assistant principal for 18 years because I didn't want to get any further away from the kids. I loved working with the kids one-on-one. And I feel like that we need to have that relationship. And because of that, actually, the first year I was on the school board, I made it a point to ask to visit every single school in the district. And so the superintendent secretary scheduled me every Wednesday into one or two different schools where I would go in and I would visit with the administrator in the building. And then I'd take a tour and I asked the administrator, tell me about your school, tell me what you're most proud of, and tell me what you need. And I took extensive notes every time I went in those buildings so that I could learn more about every single building in our district. And then after I did that in the first year, the second year, I did that with all the departments. I went to the transportation offices. I went to, a distribution. I went to every department there was in the district. I even got to drive one of the biggest school buses in the district when I went to transportation, so that was fun. But it really is, getting to know the staff and going to some of their events. Like I went to transportation's cookout that they had, and that was a lot of fun, just sitting with the bus drivers and talking with them. But I feel like you really need to get with the employees of this district to really understand what their needs are, how they're feeling about the district, And so when it comes to making those decisions, when you're sitting up there on the dais and you're making a decision on budgets or programs or whatever that is, that you've had an opportunity to speak with each of those employees out there. Not every single one, obviously, but get out and mix and mingle with them.
Okay. Please summarize your qualifications and level of financial expertise appropriate to govern an approximate $300 million school district budget.
Okay. I'm not going to pretend that I'm great with math, okay? My highest grade in high school math in Mr. Flint's class was a B. And he's still a friend to this day. He didn't hold that against me. But so I will leave some of the higher mathematical, decisions. I defer to a person like Judy Hedrick, who has a vast knowledge of finance, and I talk to people like that if I have questions, or I ask our superintendent, to get me the answers to my questions if I cannot read. But every month what I do faithfully is I do open every single financial document. I keep track of the ledgers. I look through every expenditure that's in each of those, and it takes quite a while. So I know where the money's being spent, and if I have any questions about where the money's being spent, then I jot notes down as I'm going through my board packet, and I send all of those questions to the superintendent, and then she and her assistant, Linda Ismert, get those questions answered and get them back to me. So I can tell exactly where, our budget is going. Things like 70% of our expense goes to teachers' salaries and benefits, things like that, and plus we get reviews by our CEO, Wesley Metz, so they help us to understand those.
Okay. What is your approach to conflict resolution among board members?
You really had to ask that, didn't you? Conflict resolution among board members. Well, I think the first thing is you have to be a good listener. We need to listen to understand and not think about what we want to say next. We've learned a lot in the last couple of years with that, and MSBA has really come in and tried to help us with some of those communication issues. But communication and cooperation are key, and I don't see how you can move forward in a positive direction if you don't have that communication and cooperation, and you're not really listening. And so that's one thing that I try to do at each of the board meetings, particularly when we have our public comment time. I'm really cognizant of looking at the speaker, listening, and if you watch those videos carefully, you'll see me. I'm always taking notes because I'm listening to everything that is said, and I can tell you what those speakers who came up to the microphone said. I just think that's super important because when it comes right down to it, that's what everyone wants, is they want someone to listen to them. And, maybe you can do something about it, and maybe you can't, but at least you need to listen. So we need teamwork, too. I wanted to say that. I said teamwork is one of the most important concepts when it comes to that board. We all need to understand that we're all in this thing together, and we're all in it for the kids, and that means we need to work as a team.
Please describe a group deliberation experience in which you held a minority opinion but were ultimately successful in reaching a consensus.
Okay. Well, I think we've been able to do that on some contract negotiation issues. I can't go into a lot of details on that because it's closed session stuff, and that's something that we can't talk about in public. But and those are big issues, and sometimes you just, you may not have the same opinion, but you can come to a consensus with a little bit of give and take. And, if anybody says you don't negotiate, that's wrong because, you know that, and even in a good marriage, you've got to have some negotiation skills and some give and take. You can't always get your way. So it's just what you need to do.
Okay. Please explain the roles of district leadership, superintendent and school board, with respect to the broader community.
Can you repeat that question for me?
Yeah. Please explain the roles of district leadership with respect to the broader community.
Okay, district leadership in the broader community. I guess I'm looking at it in more of a communication sense. If I'm not sure if I'm interpreting your question right, but I think that we need to be able to, like I said, listen, and we also need to be able to communicate well. One of the things that we have prioritized in the past year, actually our district priority number 3, has to do with communication. And whether it's the district administration itself or the school board, I don't know if you're including the school board in that question or not, but I think we're all in this together, and that we need opportunities to be able to, like I said, listen, and we need to make sure that we're clearly communicating what we want to say, because I think some things are very easily misunderstood. And, you know, I have to honestly say that, you know, we all make mistakes, and I think there were some pretty tricky issues that we've navigated in the last year. And when you come into a room that's high with tension, sometimes you are nervous, and sometimes you don't adequately convey what you want to convey, the reason for a vote or why you're doing something. And I've determined that in the future that I need to be very, very clear. If I vote no on an issue, I need to be very, very clear as to the reason why I'm voting no on that issue, because in the absence of that information, people can make up whatever they want to think, you know.
Okay. Current data provided by our school district shows certain subsets of students are underachieving in math, science, and other categories.
Mm-hmm.
How do you interpret this data and propose the LSR 7 board address it?
That's a good question. I think the data is true. You can't argue with those test scores in that data. It's absolutely true. But how do I propose to help that, or a solution? Okay, number one, we need to really have a strong focus on early childhood education. That's super important. Every little child who walks into a kindergarten classroom these days, when they're given their kindergarten test, they're expected to know their ABCs, be able to identify them, all their shapes, all their colors. And you have little children who are walking into each of those classrooms who don't know those things. And it's not because they're not smart, it's just because they haven't been exposed to them. So pre-K, early childhood education, is super important. And I sincerely hope that our bond issue passes in April. It needs to pass because one portion of Prairie View Elementary School, the northern portion, will be designated for more early childhood education classrooms. And that's exactly what we need. We need to provide more of that for our children. In addition to our preschool children, I could talk about this for quite a while, but in addition to our preschool kiddos, we need to make sure that we're supporting every single student in the way he or she needs to be supported. And what our school district has done, and I don't know that we've done that great of a job of telling the community this, is that the teachers are very closely looking at how those children scored on their previous test the past year, and they're looking at what their deficits are, and they're looking at how they need to help them improve. And that's exactly what we need to be doing, and that's part of that multi-tiered systems of support. You hear them in meetings say MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. That's all the different ways that they're working to help our kids bring those scores up. We've hired Greg Tang, doing Greg Tang Math, and we've trained all of our teachers. And Those teachers are very pleased with that, and this is it's a great way for the kiddos to connect to math concepts, and our teachers are finding success with that. We purchased a new language arts curriculum last year. It was way overdue. We really have needed that curriculum for quite a long time. The teachers have gotten used to that curriculum in the past year, and they're using that. So I believe that's going to help our kiddos. But we're just doing quite a few great things, actually, and I think we're going to start seeing that gap, what they're calling the gap, decrease.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you consider major challenges and priorities for the district, and how will you address?
Well, I think one of our major challenges right now, and the one that's right in front of my mind, is our bond issue. I think I consider it a major challenge, but I hope our public doesn't consider that a major challenge. I hope that they think that's absolutely necessary, because it is. We're a little behind, honestly. We've had classrooms that have been full, and we need extra space, and we haven't done that. We've taken time to survey our public and see where they believe the needs are. And yes, we did a boundary study, and not everyone was happy with every aspect of that, but we came up with a solution there, and we came up with a type of plan that we needed to follow through with on our comprehensive facilities master plan. And so when we build another middle school, and we take our 6th graders to middle school, that frees up that frees up classrooms in our elementary schools. When we take part of Prairie View, whose enrollment, by the way, is declining at Prairie View, and that's why we can use part of that, which is a double wide elementary school, by the way. It's built in 2 phases, and each side is an elementary school, because my mom taught there from the beginning. The north side and create early childhood. Some of those rooms that are out in the schools right now can go to that building and be in that building. So we free up space in those elementary schools. With that bond issue, we'll add some space to each of our other middle schools. We will renovate Lee Summit High School with necessary infrastructure needs and safe passageways for those kids to pass from building A to building B. We provide more classrooms at Mason Elementary, which is bursting at the seams. We just need it. So that's a major challenge that we need to undertake and we need to pass. We also need to do more work on our equity issue. And our equity plan is being worked on, and we're working on developing that right now. I mean, actually, the plan's developed, but each of the steps that are being taken, we need to communicate that to the public well about what we were doing in each of those steps. We have more to go. We have more to do. We're being trained this year by the EEC. I've gone through 2 trainings so far with that, and it's been good training. Our teachers report excellent results or excellent feedback from their training, and so we need to continue that.
Okay. What do you believe should be a primary focus of the school board and your role as a board member?
The students, really. We need to just keep focusing on what's best for our students, and all of our decisions, all of the ways we spend our money, the ways we spend our time, what we focus on, who we hire, all of that needs to be centered on our kids. Because of the student well-being issues, we may need more social workers in our schools, something that we never even thought of in the past. Now we need. We have some, but we need more, okay? We need to be very cognizant in our hiring practices, that we need to go out and we need to seek some minority candidates, honestly, because our teaching staff and our administrative staff need to reflect the percentage of our student population. Kids need role models. And all of our students need to be able to look up to someone and say, that's my role model. I want to be like that person. We need great teachers. You know, Missouri, the state of Missouri needs great teachers. We need great role models for all of our kids. So we need to make sure that the makeup of our ethnicity of our teaching staff mirrors the ethnicity of our students. And we can do that if we're very proactive in our hiring practices, and we make sure that we go to traditionally black universities. If we have an ethnic career fair, hiring fair in our own district, there are several different ways we can go about doing that. And we can hire really great teachers for our kids and meet all of their needs.
Okay. What is your long-term vision for our district?
My long-term vision starts with gaining trust. I think that's the first thing. We've lost some trust in the last couple of years, and it's sad. It makes me sad as a person who attended Lee Summit schools and worked for the district for 30 years. That makes me sad. I want this town to be proud of our schools. I was proud of our schools. And I want our town to be proud of our schools once again. I want every kiddo in this district to be able to say, I go to Lee Summit. I go to Lee Summit West, North, Lee Summit High. And, and I want all of those kids in all of those schools to look on each other as friends and neighbors, and support one another, which I think in many ways they already do. Our students are amazing. We could take a few clues from them, or a few cues from them, because in many ways they get along better than some of the adults in our community, So our kids are amazing, and our teachers are amazing, and we really do have a wonderful school district and a wonderful city. And I think that's what we need to work toward, is gaining pride in ourselves again and rebuilding that trust. And I think with Dr. Buck at the helm with us and a school board that'll work together, that we can certainly do it.
Okay. How are we doing on time? You got 3 minutes. Is there anything else you want to cover?
Boy, I think I just gave you my best shot there. I was speaking. I was speaking from my heart. I'm a Lee Summit girl, and and the first years of my life, I grew up in Independence. I went to elementary school in Independence, but ever since I hit town and started going to Lee Summit High School, I've loved this place. It just was a great place to grow up, and it's a great place to live now, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And there are many people in this town that I highly look up to, and some of them are actually in this room.